Hey guys, Brian Cusco here, Triple B. Ball python morphs. There are so many these days. There are literally thousands of possible combinations out there. Almost all of the base morphs that make these combos came out of the wild originally. Today, we're going to meet an industry pioneer who is responsible for bringing many of these morphs to our homes. You're watching Triple B TV. I can't snap. Anyone who is familiar with ball python morphology will be familiar with the coral glow, the desert ghost, and of course the spider. Now, there are a handful of industry pioneers that we can thank for making the journey to West Africa to find these morphs in person. Lindy Johnson is one of those pioneers. You may also know him as the creator of the most innovative rack systems in the world, Freedom Breeder. Lindy has played a huge role in shaping the reptile hobby into what it is today, but he really doesn't want any recognition for it. So after a little coaxing, we convinced him to do this interview and get some of that recognition that I think he deserves. How'd you get into snakes?
Just a kid growing up and go to the lake and go fishing or frogging, and then to look for the snakes and always find snakes around the water, around the lake. Take off up the creeks and everything and find old wood piles. And
it's been a lifelong thing.
Yeah, I started as a kid, and my mom always remembered me leaving by myself or whatever and sun up, and then the sun would be coming down waiting for me to come home, you know.
Nice.
And did that until got in high school, and then grew out of it because of, you know, school and kids and partying and doing whatever as a kid growing up, and got out of it for years and had my kids, and then wanted snakes and got me all back into it again.
So are you responsible for bringing in some of those first morphs of ball pythons? Was that?
Yeah, I brought lots and lots of different ones in. I brought a lot in. Brian Barczyk brought a lot in, and Ian Ganowski. Him and me were over there bringing a lot of stuff in. We all brought a lot of stuff in, but I did bring a lot of different morphs in.
So which morphs are you personally responsible for bringing into the hobby?
We brought the coral glow in, the recessive desert, brought the first leucistic in.
And spider? I mean, was spider?
The spider is a funny story. It came in down in LA through a guy who managed a pet store. He got it in as normal ball pythons. I forget which seller out of LA, if it was LA Reptile or who sold it into them at the pet store, just as normals. Because back then there was no morphs really. It was the albino, not much else morphs at that time. He posted it all over to Bob Clark and Tracy Barker, and everybody wanted to buy it, and then he didn't want to sell it for a year. Kevin told me about it, that it was out there, and me to try to find it in California. So I started checking around, and then I thought I found it through somebody, and everybody wanted to make more money. And then we went to the Orlando show back in the day when it was in Orlando, and met up with a friend there that was from LA. And he says, I know the guy. I said, well, let's call him. So he called him, flew to LA, took my backpack and some money, and met him at the airport, went out to lunch, bought the snake, put it in my backpack, and flew back up home.
Nice. So when was that?
That snake was here. I didn't bring it in from Africa.
Okay.
And his wife wanted to go on vacation, so he had to sell the snake to go on vacation.
All right.
So I caught him at the right moment and bought the snake.
Cool. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was. That was a difference. That one was here. You know, the coral glow got out of Africa. I posted it. Everybody said, "Why would you post this snake with all the ticks on it?" I said, "They're not ticks. These are normal colored dark scales." You know, and nobody believed me. Couldn't believe that I'd post a snake with all those ticks all over it. Yeah, it was pretty funny.
That was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Were you the first person to build racks out of metal?
Yeah, pretty much. Ted at Neodesha did a really cheap rodent rack for a few years or whatever, but it wasn't very good out of metal, and then I made my metal racks and took them off to a whole different level.
What year did you start Freedom Breeder?
I don't know. Back in, I think the shirt says 92, I think.
Okay.
Something like that. And I built them for myself because I couldn't breed the rodents. I said, anybody breeding snakes, you got to breed your own rodents. I said, well, how do you do it? Oh, you got to buy these lab aquarium cages and put them on, build a wood shelf, put them on a wood shelf, and feed them every 2 days, and you got to fill the water bottle up every day or 2 days. And I said, well, how do you go on vacation? And buddy said, you can't go on vacation. What are you talking about? And I said, well, I'm going to put a stop to that. And a year later, we were out in my front yard, and he says, you remember this was a year ago, right about this date, was that you said you'd do these things, and we did it. I said, what do we call it then? And he says, Freedom Breeder. And that's where the Freedom Breeder came, because we had the freedom to go on vacation now.
That's good. All right, it makes perfect sense.
That's how the actual Freedom Breeder name came out. Gave us the freedom to breed, but be able to take time off now.
Gotcha. That's a great.
I started them in my garage, and then I shipped one and sent pictures out to Tracy, and then I sent her one, a rodent rack. Called me and says, I need you to fly out here this week. I said, I can't get a ticket. She says, I'll buy the ticket, fly out here this week. And she wanted me to make, instead of more rodent racks, turn them into reptile racks because of the ventilation. She wanted more ventilation than everybody uses a lot now. Now a lot of people want less ventilation. So that's why we do the racks with the inserts that you can change and put any ventilation that you want in the rack. So as somebody in California, here we need high humidity, you don't want the ventilation. In Florida, you like Eugene Bissett, we do 200% ventilation for him, and he still can't keep trays dry. We can't keep trays moist here in California. Our snakes, ball pythons are very harder to breed out here in California with our, 20% humidity today at 106 degrees?
Yeah, if that sounds like a stretch, it might have been more like 10%.
Well, that's why we have a little bit of a struggle of dealing with breeding ball pythons out here.
What is it about Freedom Breeders that you think made it so successful? What do you think made it the best rack in the business?
We started with them back in the day, like I said, to breed rodents where you had automatic watering and food for, a couple weeks. So that was the breakthrough of the whole end of it, for the rodent end of it. But it's reptile too, is, all the racks have been made out of melamine. You put the trays in, the wood swells, then you can't get the tray in and out. The heat doesn't dissipate very well. There's really not been any ventilation unless you drill holes around the tray and then leave a big gap in between the top and there. And then they get hot in there. You can't, and that's where the ventilation was key. That's what Tracy wanted. She wanted more ventilation. So then but then the racks. And then we had problems at the beginnings with powder painting. We evolved from powder painting and had rust issues and had the expanded metal in the day, and then we upgraded to electric galvanizing, and then we still had rust issues. And I always wanted to do them in stainless steel, but I couldn't afford this. Stainless is just the raw materials 4 times in the pricing. And we didn't have the machinery to do the things that we do now. We've purchased, a couple $100,000 in machinery to be able to do the quality of stuff that we do now. So we've evolved, and now we own our own building, a 13,000 square foot building on 2 acres with, as you see when you're there, with all our machines punching out sheet metal all day long. I mean, it runs all day from beginning of the day to the end of the day.
Right? Yeah, it does.
Yeah, I mean, and it punches all day long, and then when 2 or 3 people will be bending and couple guys welding all day long,
Yeah.
Every day, And so everybody wanted the metal racks from the plastic racks and the wood racks. They're way more sturdy. You can climb on them like a ladder. You can't do that in the plastic racks and stuff, and roll them from one room to the others, and it just, so the metal was better, but we had to evolve over the years up to be able to afford the stainless steel and the machinery, and then now we do everything in stainless steel, so now it's completely state of the art, you know. I mean, with all plastic inserts that slide in and out, so you clean the insert, you clean the tray, it's 100% clean. How can you clean that in a plastic rack or a melamine rack? You can't clean it 100%. You got to try to get in there and try to clean with your arms the top and clean the tray and slide it back in. These you can take the insert out, bleach them, leave them in the sun for a couple hours, let the sun kill everything, or overnight during a day, and then slide the inserts or slide another set of inserts in with, you know, 25% ventilation, 50% ventilation, 100% ventilation, or 200% as Eugene Bissett uses. You know, I mean, somebody can have desert stuff in it with no humidity, and then and stuff that they want, you know, high humidity. Each slot is, you can dial into what you want.
Totally.
You can't dial that in with any other rack. And if you buy a plastic rack or a wood rack, you can't change any of the ventilation or anything. These you can change at any time. Especially now our rodent racks too have all in stainless steel inserts that slide in and slide out too. So if any of them get damaged over years or whatever,
you just replace it for a single slot.
Replace any single slot.
Yeah.
You know?
Totally.
And we've made everything module, everything is a universal in everything, as you saw. Food hoppers, they clip all in now, so you can clip it in, your food hopper in the back where we originally had them for 13 years. And now people have wanted them in the front, so you can take it and unclip it from the back and clip it into the front and change it by any time you want. What can you do in any other racks like that? You can't do these things. You know, we've embossed the water tips where they're flush so the tray slides in and out. And when it's up in a recessed area, the rodents don't seem to like to want to mess with shoving stuff in the tip near as much. The floods have cut down unbelievable difference. You see one of the racks and look at the detail work on it. As you know now, we've taken them from here to here.
So great things happening at Freedom Breeder these days. I'm looking forward to a future episode where we'll get to see all the amazing ball pythons that they're producing. And maybe we can get to hear a little more about Lindy's adventures in Africa as well. Next week, we're going to take an inside look at one of the largest reptile expos in North America, maybe even in the world, Tinley Park. I hope you guys are ready. Until next week, you've been watching Triple B TV. Y'all take care.